not despise small beginnings. I've seen God use the small to make just great. And so that's exactly where you two are going.
It starts as a seed, it grows into a bush, the bush turns into a tree, and the tree attracts everything it needs, and it covers territory. You see the tree that's inside the seed. I give him permission to put this seed in the ground in LA, in California, in the United States, in North America, and in the world.
Pastor Halton here from House 633, and it is such a pleasure and honor to be with you guys today. It is Wednesday, end of the month, so it is our monthly live. So I'm honored to be here, joined today by David and Andy. So you guys want to say hello to the camera, to the people on the other side?
Yeah, so God bless you guys. Thank you for joining us. It is our monthly Wednesday live now. So it's a pleasure just being here with you guys again, being able to be joined by David and our pastor. It's always a blessing. So I'm excited for what we're going to talk about. I hope that you guys have this whole year, because everything's just been such a continuation off of every subject that we've touched. So yeah, I just pray that it blesses you guys.
Yeah, hello everyone. It's been a minute since I've been up here, so feels like a really long time. Glad to be up here, privileged and blessed. Thank you, God. And looking forward to what we have to conversate about here. And yeah, it's like you said, it's a continuation of everything that we've been learning up into the year. So if you have, it may not add up as much as you would, it would be beneficial for you to do, because you know, like I said, it's a continuation, but you can always go back and watch everything else.
Hey man, so today we just wanted to kind of phase out our vision series and kind of start stepping into our influence series, and I want to talk about today about salt to the earth, because when the Bible speaks about salt to the earth, it's really talking about it can impact other people. And I want to use a Bible verse as a foundation basis point for this conversation. For those of you guys that are joining us online, please like, share, so that we can get this message out there. We can touch the lives of many other people that might need to hear this message, that is going to be beneficial for them. So you can definitely help us out a lot simply by giving us a like and just by sharing. And if you have questions, put your questions on the live. We'll try to respond as we're here. You know, so just being distracted from the other side, you know, it's like when they make signs, I get distracted. But many blessings. Thank you guys for joining us. So I'm going to read just Matthew 5 verse 13. It says, your lives are like salt among the people, but if you, like salt, become bland, how can your saltiness be restored? And that is a question. Flavorless salt is good for nothing and will be thrown out and trampled on by others. Mm-hmm. So, you know, like I said, when we talk about influence and we talk about this topic, salt to the earth, it is really kind of like a command from Jesus to say, hey, you know what, you need to be able to understand first. That's what it's a continuation of understanding the kingdom, because we started the year talking about the kingdom. Right. Then we started with identity, understanding who we are as individuals. Our purpose, which is our assignment, and then now we're talking about vision, being able to see the bigger picture. So what? So that we can have influence. You know, the whole point of us understanding the king and having to tap into God's vision is so that we can be influential, so that we can be the salt. And that's what Jesus is talking about in this verse specifically. And I want to get your guys' point of view as well, because it says that but if you, like salt, become bland, meaning that you lose your influence, that you lose that power to be able to be impactful in the lives of the community, in the lives of your family, or in the lives of other people, how can your saltiness be restored? Right. You know, it is no longer good for nothing, and it is only good to be thrown out and be trampled on by others. So what do you guys think about that statement?
You want to go first? Yeah, so as I was reading and kind of studying, it actually brought me back to the conversation we were having Sunday about like so many times that we are called to influence the world, but it's so easy to go from vision and now you're talking about like all these assignments and the overall vision in role here that I need to do for God's kingdom to expand it, that it's easy to say like, okay, like I want to impact the world, I need to impact like my family, like all this outer exterior people, which is what we're called to do. But in that journey of trying to influence others, it's really easy to forget that the first person you're supposed to influence is you. So when it talks about how can I mean, where did it say? But how can your saltiness be restored if you become bland? I was reading that and I was like, well, you become bland when you stop influencing you. And how we were talking about it's like if you
When
do,
salt stops becoming salt.
right, exactly, because if you can't influence your mind, if you can't influence your thoughts, if you can't take control of your actions, then you'll never be able to influence the exterior family, the world, your workplace, everywhere else. So when I was reading that, I was like, yeah, we need to be aware that the first place that we need to influence is ourselves. It starts with our mind. It starts with our concepts, with our thoughts. And those are the first things that need to be influenced in order for us to influence the exterior.
How about you? What do you think about
David?
this?
It's funny because earlier when I was doing a little bit of studying, that was one of the things that came up in my mind too. It's like yeah, you can't influence someone else if you yourself are not salt. If you're not if we're not becoming who we were meant to become, which God says that we're supposed to be the salt among the people, then basically we're not going to be able to, I guess, perform of like, I don't know if it falls in the same line, but like, how when God was saying that, or Jesus was saying that, like the yeast will permeate the dough, and in a way, it's like with us, like if someone else is basically like, if there's yeast that is put into our lives, and it's like, let's say bad, then it affects our whole life, So either we can influence others, or we can be influenced and turn to be not who we were called to be.
Yeah, I mean, when we talk about influence, I was just like I was mentioning to you guys offline here. Either you become an influence or a force to impact other people, or you're going to be impacted and influence yourself.
Right.
And the reason why this is very important for us to be able to understand what salt of the earth is. The salt is meant to as a tool. Ancient days, they didn't have refrigerators, they didn't have the technology that we have today to be able to preserve the food, so they used salt as a preserver. So God was using that analogy as like, hey, it is up to you guys to preserve everything that is out there. So
Right.
if we don't understand who we are, how are we going to be able to impact our families and preserve our family? If we don't understand who we are, how are we going to be able to impact our community? How are we going to be able to impact our nation, the world? Because it's being the salt, it is not just a bunch of salt. It's a bunch of little grains of salt mixed together that cause the impact. So it's not about one single person. It's about a bunch of us becoming something that is going to allow us to preserve what we were called to preserve. And if we look at the condition of the world today, the world really needs a lot of preservation. You look at the political system, you look at the banking system, you look at the healthcare system, you look at all of these education system, all of these systems that are suffering because of the lack of salt in them. And that's exactly what Jesus was actually warning us here, that if we were left here on the earth to be the salt so that we can influence those systems, but we become bland, how are those systems going to be preserved? How are those systems going to be sustained? How are those systems going to be able to function the way that they're supposed to be functioning? The only way that they can do it is if we as individuals become that salt and activate in an area of influence, so that we can impact the education system, we can impact banking, we can impact whatever industry that we were called to be in. Not only necessarily also the church, because the church also needs some salt.
Right.
The church also needs to be influenced so that it can start doing what Jesus wants us to do. But some people weren't called for the church. Some other people were called to be out there in the world, and they need to preserve whatever it is that they were sent out there to do. So in today's world, in today's time that we live in, I think it's very important to understand that if we don't become salt, like this verse says, it is no good for anything anymore.
Right.
Like if you can't become a person of influence, God can't use you.
Right.
Or God doesn't even need you.
Right.
What it says here is that you're just getting ready to be thrown out so that everybody else can trample you.
Right. And then what I was gonna add to it is like I think that's why it's so important that we follow the series that we've been doing, because a lot of times, like how we were talking about, like vision can be easily intertwined with ambition. Like you can be doing good things and productive things, but if it's not building the kingdom, then it's building it against it. So it's very easy to get vision and ambition mixed up. So in the same way with influence, it's easy to think you're influencing, but if you're not influencing from the correct vision, the correct purpose that we've been given, then you're not really influencing at all. Because influence can look like anything. It's like, oh, let's say I'm a manager, at my job, and now I have influence over people. But if it's not being done from the standpoint of the kingdom, or without the full understanding of what God's vision is for your life and your purpose, then you can be influencing in the wrong way.
I just want to tap into this thing that you just said, because a lot of people kind of always look at it from the church perspective, and I really like when I have like conversations with Dr. William, and we talk about certain stuff like this, and he said this comment once that really sticks out to me, especially with this conversation, because usually when they think about people in the church, what they think about, let's invite them to pray. And I really like what he said, because he's like, you know what, if you need me to go there to pray, don't invite me, because I can do more than pray. I can help you fix the situation with your school. I can help you in other areas of administration. I can be of influence and useful. Look at our jobs, for example. If we're Christians, we're not supposed to pray for our jobs. What we're supposed to do is we're supposed to go in there and show the excellence of God. And we're supposed to go in there and be able to show that we carry the mind of God, and being able to solve problems, and being able to deal with situations, and being able to bring restoration in these areas of work, where people think that those have nothing to do with the church, or they have nothing to do with God. Your job so that you can be salt there, because He doesn't need you to be salt within the church confines. So as me as a pastor, or me as a kingdom citizen, my responsibility is, if I'm also called to be out there in the marketplace as a manager, I got to go out there and do my job with excellence, because that's where the light of God really shines. I got to be able to take care of the customers, of the guests. I got to be able to resolve the problems. I got to be able to see that, show everybody that it can be done in an excellent way. The light of God can really be shown in those areas. They don't need me to go there and speak in tongues, and they don't need me to go in those areas to prophesy, and they don't need me to go in there to do anything other than to show that we can do more things other than just pray. And like I said, I think that in the church world, we've been accustomed to believe that that there's this separation between your job, between the state, between the church, and with God there is no separation. Everything belongs to Him. Every system belongs to God. Everything that is out there, contrary to mainstream belief, does not belong to the devil. It actually belongs to my Father. Every car industry, every health industry, every banking industry, the political system, everything belongs to Him, but is being taken over by people that are influencing it in the wrong manner. So He requires us, the people that are part of the ecclesia, to be able to become that salt, to go into those systems, so that we can bring the restoration to the system that it needs, so that it can be a benefit to every citizen worldwide.
Right, and then I really like that you brought that up, because as we keep reading, verse 16 says, so don't hide your light, let it shine brightly before others, so that your commendable works will shine as a light upon them, and they will give their praise to your Father in heaven. It just goes hand in hand with this thing of, like, if you have salt and you have influence, that there has to be action that backs it up. Like, there has to be action, like you said, in the workplace that shows, like that word, that commendable works. Like, there have to be works that show that you are salt and that you have the light in you, because then when people see your commendable works, like it says, then they will give praise to your Father in heaven. And it goes back to this concept that we've talked about, that a lot of people think that God is just in church, that the only place that you can find God is in church. But it's actually the opposite. It's like, in reality, the only place that most people will find God is in you. So for they not ever step foot into a church, so they may never have the chance to would encounter God in a church building, but they have every day the opportunity to encounter to encounter God through us in our workplace, in the way that we act, in the way that we say stuff. So that's where it comes important that we need to be that light, that salt, because if we claim to be kingdom citizens or Christians, or we claim to know God, but our works aren't commendable and we don't have that light that shines, then they won't ever get to know God, because we are the God that they'll be able to see.
Yeah, and like I said, that's very powerful, because we need to understand that the whole point of us coming to our senses, or should I say, coming to our identity, because anybody that does not know their identity, it is not in their true senses as to who they are, is so that we can be able to go out there and be able to influence and change the status quo and change the things that need to be changed within the systems. Right now, we're in a season where all the kids are going back to school. For example, they're going back to school, and the school system, the educational system, is a mess. One, there's a shortage of teachers, which means that there's more children in the classroom, which means that children are going to be neglected even more because the teacher doesn't have the capacity to deal with all these children. So where are all these people that want to influence the world, for example, in the name of God? Where are all these godly teachers that can go into the system to help the children? Because the children need help in the school system, because we also have people on the other side that they do understand influence at a higher level than we do. So we have people in the educational system that are there advocating for their beliefs. They're advocating for their worldview of what they believe the world should be like. So now they're teaching our children that being transgender is okay, that the LGBTQ propaganda is so permeated like yeast into the whole system, and even though it's a small group, they're affecting the entire system. So now they're teaching children as young as 3 and 4 about sexuality, stuff that is not even in the mind of children. But why? Because we're not taking our position as salt of the earth. And when we don't take our position as salt of the earth, the Bible clearly says that the only thing that we're good for is now to be thrown out, to be trampled on. So many people are being trampled in the educational system. The parents' belief system is being trampled. The parents' rights are being trampled. Why? Because there's not enough salt in there to be able to preserve it, to be able to fight for it. And what really bothers me, for example, is you have all of these Christian parents, all of these Christian people that complain about a system that they have no intention of influencing. They have no intention or being a part of whatsoever. And the thing is that they don't have to become teachers, for example. They don't have to be necessarily teachers to be in the school system giving the lessons, but they do have to be parents that are active within the school board system, so that their desires, their will, their influence on that school board will make sure that the children are protected.
Right, and that's the truth, because it's funny, because as kids, it's like, I remember being told, like, oh, hey, tell your parents to become part of the PTA meetings. Tell your parents to be part of all these other meetings, but it's just like, okay, like, for what? Like, we never knew what it was for, and all these school meetings involving parents. But yeah, like, fast forward now, it's like what we're talking about, like, this influence. Let's just say here, the LGBTQ plus a community, they've understood, and they've been able to influence everything. They influence the school systems, the entertainment system. Let's just take a look at Disney. Every single movie now involves some type of either homosexual with LGBTQ plus. Every movie we watch, every show they made that we see now involves some sort of transgender person or homosexual homosexual person. So they've been able to understand and take a hold of all these systems that we haven't been able to be a salt of, where we haven't been able to shine our light bright enough and cause influence, where now we find ourselves kind of like always playing from behind. It's like, oh, now we realize that they're influencing all this, and now we're trying to, like, okay, what can we do now to help combat this system, or what can we do now to help our children, our family members, or people that we know not be so easily influenced. because the fact of the matter is, just how we can get purpose from anything or vision from anything, like we need to realize that we're being influenced 24/7, whether it's with music that we listen to, whether it's TV shows, movies, or people that we admire. We're being influenced every single day by everything that we're around ourselves. And if we're not the salt, if we're not able to be the light, and we're not connected to God and influencing others, then we need to know that we're being influenced without even recognizing it.
I have a comment here, and I'll get you guys' take on it from Brother Noah here. He says, what do you guys think about parents that instead of influencing the school system, they are keeping their kids at home and doing home studies, or basically homeschooling, which is what he's saying. What do you guys think about that? And then I'll give my 2 cents.
I'm like, I'm not a parent, so I'll pass it to David.
Oh man, I don't know. That's a tough one actually, cause yeah, my daughter, she's 3 years old right now, so she's not in school yet. But I think
I guess the question that he's saying is, do you think that they are influencing or not influencing simply because they're keeping the kids at home versus sending them to public school system?
yeah, and that's what I was gonna say right now. I guess, and technically, yeah. I mean, how can you influence from home? I mean, unless you gain some kind of social media influence, which is possible now. But yeah, I mean, if you just keep like we've learned, it's not, you're not supposed to be a part of the world, but you are gonna be in the world, and if you're stuck at home, then how are you supposed to influence people? I mean, yeah, at some point you're gonna need to socialize, you're gonna need to influence other people and bring them to God, and you can't do that by staying at home. So I don't know. I mean, I guess that's what I think, that maybe it's just gonna be hard, and if we're talking about influence, and I don't know how you can do that from home all the time.
And then I'll play devil's advocate here. So kind of like the other side again, to play devil's advocate. It's like I mean I would say that it's neither right nor wrong. It's a decision that you personally take with your own family. And if you want to take the decision to directly influence your family and take that power away from the school system, then that's a decision that you take as the head of household. Because I think at the end
that could be considered influence.
Right, yeah, because you're choosing to directly influence your family. Because, again, at the end of the day, again, I'm not a parent, but if your child spends 8 hours in another facility being constantly influenced, and let's say the typical gets home late, the mom is usually the one that stays there with the children all day long. And if there's not that strong influence from the man of the house, then yeah, it's very, very easy to lose that influence over your children if they spend 8 hours in somewhere else. So if you take the decision to directly take that power away from a school system, and now you're choosing to influence your child with who you are, then yeah, I mean, I would say that that's fine too.
I would say that there's a way to influence in both ways, depending on assignment and depending on where you were called to influence. So some people will influence within the school system itself, within with the school boards, whether being part of the board, or whether they just simply attend all these meetings where they can just tell the teachers what they're supposed to, where they're supposed to stay in their lane. Right. Or they were just simply called to influence their children and get them out of that system so that they can influence their children with their values, with their morals, with their ethics, with their character. But like I said, we got to be able to see up to what capacity does the parent do that. Right. As to what capacity does the parent have to be able to stay at home with the child and be able to influence them in that capacity. So I would say either way, you can be able to be salt. We were called primarily to influence our families. Right. So sometimes if we can't go into these boards or we can't go against the system because for whatever reason, then the next best thing is like, hey, let's take their influence away. Right. by keeping them closer to us. So I would say it's a little bit of both.
Yeah, I wanted to just add a little bit about that. Yeah, I was thinking about that on the way here too. You know, that one of the things that stuck out to me the most is that we definitely have to be able to influence our families. You know, me that I have my wife and my daughter, and like so many other people that come here, you know, have families, and like we've learned, you know, or like we believe that the church is only as strong as like the each family. You know, like the family has to be strong. The family is one of the things that comes first. And and also we've learned that you have to, you know, as all this lines up, you know, part of being able to influence is from within your own family, you know, because you multiply yourself, which means that everyone in your family has the same morals and values that you do when it comes to, you know, transferring the faith to everyone. So yeah, I mean, you know, we that's the first place that I believe that we start, is being able to influence our own families.
So that's good. So I mean, if you guys have more questions or anything that you guys want to put online, go ahead and give us a like, share, put your comments there so that we can continue.
Yeah.
Uh,
So kind of, I'm thinking about it now, and kind of expanding that question is like, so kind of to what he's saying, is complete avoidance sometimes a better decision? Like, because let's just say, like, if there's such a heavy influence, let's say, on the entertainment community, right? Like everything is now LGBT, everything is like that now. So is it right for us to partake in stuff like that, knowing that there's this influence behind these movies, behind these shows, and just completely avoid watching these things?
Well, I would say that I think that that's the lack of influence within the family, if you ask me, because we got to be honest with ourselves, and we have to be able to make self-assessments of our own family, of our own decision, and what's really happening. And there is nothing wrong with entertainment, for example. There is nothing wrong with movies. There is nothing wrong with none of this stuff that's going on there, meaning that there are wholesome movies out there that you can watch. There is entertainment that you can consume that will not influence you or impact you in a negative way. But we have to be aware of the entertainment that is slowly creeping up, for example, that is slowly planting the seeds there, and they're more patient than we are. Like we want to see results right away, but the entertainment industry, the way that it's working is they start planting seeds in our children from the ages of 2, 3, 4, 5. So by the time they get to the age of 10 to 13, they're already manifesting something. They're already giving fruits that they want to see. And most of the time, that's when you see that the children start rebelling against the parents, because they already have ideas, philosophies. They already have been influenced by this system. Simply why? One, because they make sure that fathers and mothers or the family are always busy working, and that the children are always alone. Two, they make sure that we're always tired, because if we're tired and we come home, what we want to do is rest. So the first thing we're going to do is like, let's put on a movie, go to the tablet, go do something so that I can rest. And while we're resting because we're tired, because we're working, they are sowing. And they're waiting patiently for that seed to come forth with fruit. And usually we don't see it until it's too late. So, you know, like I said, my granddaughter, for example, she's young. They don't care about her current age. What they care about is when she's 10, 15, 20, 25. So they're sowing the seeds now. So we got to be careful to be able to see what she consumes online, what she consumes, and as far as what type of movies, because that's where generally she starts getting ideas. Even though she doesn't understand it, she starts getting these ideas, and then by the time we tell her this is wrong, it is too late. She already believes it is right. So but that stems because we're not being sufficient stewards. For example, we're not monitoring what they're doing, or simply we're just advocating our influence and allowing somebody else to take our place, simply because we're tired, simply because we just work 2 jobs. You know, you name it. It's like you look at the state of our generation. It's the absentee of fathers and mothers because they're just working. we're working all the time. You know, we're just tired. We're so busy. And in the generation that we live in now, even the mothers and the fathers, they're so influenced by social media that they spend all this time in social media, and then they forget that they have a child, and they forget that they're supposed to be raising them. So because they're now they're also being consumed and being influenced by the system. So it is just we got to be able to wake up, and we got to be able to say, hey, you know what? We got to start paying attention if we're going to be responsible adults, if we're going to be responsible kingdom citizens, and if we're going to take the word of God in our assignment series, we got to understand that we got to start becoming the salt where we have to influence our children. We have to influence the next generation. But like you were saying earlier, it begins with us. We need to make sure that we're not too tired to influence ourselves.
Right. Yeah. And
No, I mean, yeah, it's tough because I think about it. My daughter, she's 3 years old, and so I see the things that come up on TV, YouTube. Like we see it as innocent sometimes, but I know that it's purposeful. Like it's like on YouTube nowadays they have these kids that. They're just kids, and they're being recorded and they're doing like funny stuff or whatever, but they purposefully put like small things here and there, like, acts of rebellion or, just little tantrums, things like that, it's innocent when you see it in a adult to a kid perspective. Kids can be like that sometimes, but purposefully they try to teach the kids at a young age certain values or certain actions, behaviors. It affects their character. Like even I was reading the definition of influence, and it says the capacity to have an effect on the character, development, or behavior of someone or something. Just like you said, the world has a very strong grasp around what influence is, and they know that it happens over a period of time, slowly. Planting seeds, and then by that time that you realize it's already too late, like you have to basically uproot and and do major damage just to be able to get back to where we're supposed to be.
And it seems like we're always coming from behind, and that is a problem because, like I said, I also had pulled that up here. Influence, the capacity to have an effect on the character of someone. And if you look not only at children, but you look at the adults, the young adults, and even the older generation, most of them have been influenced in their character to accept things that are wrong as though it was right, because it is the season, it is the time. We're no longer living in the 60s or in the 70s or 1800s. We're living in the modern era. It's like it's not like it used to be. That's influence. It means that they have already been influenced to the point where they have accepted something that has been wrong for thousands of years as something that is now right and acceptable. People that have accepted the redefining of definitions as like marriage, as to what a man is. I don't know if you guys, I listen to the news a lot, and I do a lot of reading, and I'm always kind of like feeding myself all this stuff. But a couple of months ago, they were having this debate as to what is a woman. Right. And nobody could define what a woman was. And I'm like, you guys are crazy. I'm like, you guys are morons. I'm like, how? It's like, what do you mean? They would literally ask a woman, what's a woman? It's like, well, I don't know. It's just whatever it is that you think a woman is.
And
like,
one of them was like, I don't even identify as a woman. Like, what?
Yeah, exactly. So all of these things are done on purpose to influence the mind and the heart. And they were even going as far as to, like, if you don't have a certain title or a certain degree, you don't have the right to define something. Right. So I am not a doctor, or I am not a psychologist, right, so I can't tell you what that is because I'm not qualified to tell you what it is. I'm like, okay, is this a cat or not? Right. You're not a veterinarian, but you know it's a cat, and you can define what a cat is. Right. So you don't have to be a doctor to be able to define if a baby was born male or female, right, if it's a woman or if it's a man. It is just things that people have allowed so much influence from the outside, right, to now they're just afraid to say, hey, she's a woman. simply because she says, no, I identify as a man.
Right, and then you said something very key here, and then it just brought me back to Kingdom 101. But I remember you've taught it, and Dr. Mouse has taught it too. Relation of the kingdom, and now the Holy Spirit's in you. The first thing that they change is your language.
Yes.
The first thing that they want to influence is the way that you speak, because what you speak comes to life. It gives fruit, and what comes out of the mouth gives evidence to what's in your heart.
Right.
So when you receive the Holy Spirit, the first thing that He wants to do is change your language and take away what's not of Him, and now have you confess and declare what is of Him. And it reminded me because in one of those videos, Trist is talking about that. She's talking about how, oh no, now the definition is sex is what's biological. So yeah, you can be a male or female, that's your sex
Biologically,
but
right?
but gender, that's now what you identify as. Gender is what you associate with. It's what you feel. So now they've misconstrued this, and they say, yeah, you can be a biological male, that's your sex, but what your gender is, now that's up to you.
So they're redefining.
Right, so they've changed the language now.
Right.
Where now, again, it's like how we've talked about, it's to such an influence that if we speak out, now it's hate speech, it's transphobic, it's homophobic, it's just all these things that it's like they've taken control of language. And if your language doesn't match theirs, now they cancel you. Like this Andrew Tate guy, again, people think it's funny because it hasn't happened to them, but it's like he really hasn't said anything too crazy, and then they've canceled all his accounts, all his bank accounts, all these things just because he said a couple controversial things. But that just comes to show it's like how much control of language they have now, and they've been able to influence that and change terms.
And I feel like it's not just affected the language, but like your identity, which it goes back to the everything that we've been following, and identity was one of the first things that we touched because of how important it is, and how a lot of that starts with once you understand your true identity, and so that's one of the biggest things that the world has influenced is people's sense of their true identity. They've made all these labels, all these genders, homophobic, transphobic, like all that, it starts to affect your identity, especially if you don't know your true identity. You whatever they label you or whatever you choose to identify yourself as, like that's what you become, and that influences basically everything that you are, and so it's just crazy how all these things are being redefined. Like I was listening to a Miles message, and it was from like 10 years ago, and maybe it's because this happens every 10 years, but he was saying that they were in a time of redefinition. They were redefining all these terms, and it feels like we're in that time still, or in that time again, where marriage has been redefined, even basic scientific knowledge of how viruses work and all these things. Everything has been redefined in front of our eyes, and everybody just takes it because they're so easily influenced. They just take the word for it, and it's like, for so long, if you have 2 chromosomes of X, Y, or I forget what the other one is, that defines if you're a male or female. Now it's like all these other things,
Right, that's good.
It's the progression. For example, now we're gonna throw this other thing in the mix. Even like with the lockdowns and the coronavirus and all this stuff, this kind of actually helped speed up. Locking us up and keeping us enslaved for like almost 2 years of not being able to do anything, masking up, going against the science, going against what has been known for the last thousands of years. Herd immunity. Your own personal immunity once you get a virus. Now they're coming out saying, no, your own immunity doesn't work, or herd immunity doesn't work. You have to take the vaccine. If you don't take the vaccine, then you're not following the science. And they're redefining everything that they can because they have influence.
Right.
Because they got the power. And this is what God is really trying to really wake us up for, because He said that we are the ecclesia. and that he speaks through the ecclesia. And what it was in the times of Jesus is basically the council of the king, meaning that the king was the maximum authority. He had sovereignty, power, influence, and he had a chamber called the ecclesia, where he had this place called the ecclesia, which was a place of the called out ones, meaning that the king will come and select people from the community and bring them into these chambers, and he will give them his he will basically his influence will come over them, and their minds would change, their thoughts would change, character would change, behavior would change, and then they will say, I want you to take all of this and I want you to take it back to the community and change the communities. And for people that kind of like follow history, the biggest empires around the world, the way that they were able to conquer places weren't, especially, now that we talk about like the Roman Empire, for example, they didn't come out and did what other empires did. Usually what they did was they would invade a town, take everything of value, and then leave it in rubble. But what the Roman Empire did was totally different. What the Roman Empire did is they would go into a city, they would take over the city, and then they would send governors and they would send people from Rome into that city to transform that city's culture, like if it was the culture of Rome. And that's exactly the idea behind the ecclesia. Rome captured it. The Catholic Church does it even today. The Catholic Church has what do they call it? Like their embassies. What do they call it? Not an archbishops, well, whatever. But they have their they have like their churches mixed like if there were embassies, and they have communication with every single government around the world, because they understand that it is through influence how they can get their agenda across. So they have to be in contact with all of these powers.
Right, and then I was just thinking too, as you guys were talking, that as influences everything, eventually I see the point of influence that it leads directly to baptism, because we've been called to be baptized in the name of Jesus Christ, which means the message that he brought, which again eventually means to be baptized under the message of the kingdom. Because once you're able to be influenced by, let's just say, the kingdom, you eventually become baptized by it to the point that you have no opposition to it. So whatever the kingdom says, now that's what you just do. Like you no longer have your own thoughts, your own opinion, because you've been completely influenced and baptized. And in the same way, we see all these systems, and how you were talking about, like with COVID and everything, like it had such an influence that now the people or the world, like in a sense, has been baptized by this, that now there's literally no opposition to it. Like how you said, like thousands of years of science that we've known about all these things, but now that it's been changed, there's just no opposition to it. Like people are just like, okay, this is now what you say today. Okay, cool. You say that now unvaxxed and vaxxed are the same. Okay, cool. Like there's just no opposition to anything anymore, because there's been that total influence, that total baptism, that there's just no opposition anymore.
And no accountability.
Right.
So they get away with everything, because there's no way for people to hold them accountable, because people don't have no influence anymore.
Right.
Like there is really no protesting. There is really no opposition to it. So they just let other people that are considered leaders, or are considered people of power or influence, or that are in key positions. They're there and they must know what they're doing. So let's just follow them blindly. And the Bible is very clear. It says that a blind guy that leads the blind, they're both going to fall into the same hole. So you're not just to follow blindly. You got to be able to make sure that whatever you're following is actually true.
Right, and then it goes back to the last part of that. It's like if flavorless salt is good for nothing and will be thrown out and trampled by others. So when you don't have your salt anymore, then you're just going to get trampled by everything else that's around you. Every system that now tells you what to do, because you've lost your salt, you just say, okay. And no matter if you go against it or if you think otherwise, because you've lost your salt, it's going to trample over you.
I was thinking right now, and I'm just let me know what you guys think about it. I always say stuff that gets me in trouble, but could it be we were called to be influenced. We were called to be the salt of the earth, the light into the nations. We're supposed to be like a city on a mountaintop, shining the light into the darkness, right? But we've been taught to just get out of every system and wait for this rapture, right? And wait for the final trumpet. Could it be that that's what has caused? And I'm gonna say, could it be? But I basically already, I agree that that's the.
It's a
that's
rhetorical question.
It's a rhetorical question, exactly. Could it be that that's the reason that the church has zero influence?
Right.
Because they don't want to be part of the world. They just want to be raptured. They just want to be taken out.
Right.
So they have abandoned their responsibility. They have abandoned their assignment of going out into the world and changing the educational system, changing the
Right.
political system, the banking system, the healthcare system, changing the entertainment industry, family, and even religion. Religion is the life of people, and I really like what Dr. Monroe would say. He's like, you know what? Religion is so powerful that it doesn't matter if you're in the middle of an urban area, where a city, or you're in suburbia, or you're in the bush. The first thing people will do is build a religion,
Right.
because religion is so strong that it is always man's attempts to be good with God,
Right.
but it has nothing to do with the kingdom whatsoever.
Right.
So people create all these rituals simply because they're not salt,
Right.
and they're being influenced by all these outside sources.
Right.
Yeah, so definitely, like you said, it's a rhetorical question. I mean, that's what a lot of times you get taught, is to stay, like, they don't. I mean, even it says in the verse, your lives light up the world, for how can you hide a city that stands on a hilltop? And who would light a lamp, then hide it in an obscure place? But that's in a way what a lot of the churches do, is, they try to make it like an exclusive thing, where, like, only if you're within these walls, then, we'll shine our light upon you. But if you're out there, like, good luck, and even then, earlier I was reading, and then, which, like, we know it's a commandment in Acts. It says, "This will fulfill what the Lord has commanded us. I have destined you to become a beacon light for the nations, and release salvation to the ends of the earth." So, the ends of the earth, that's everywhere. So our light is supposed to shine across the whole earth, not just within four walls, or within your community, or only within your family. That's where it starts, but
Right.
it's not where it's supposed to be kept. And that's where we've learned. I mean, I went to a Christian church, when I was a teenager, and yeah, I mean, in a way, that's kind of what you were always taught. You stay away from this, you stay away from that, and
Right.
and how are you supposed to help others, like, when you're staying away from them, and you never know if someone just needs to see your light so that it can
Right.
shine on them, and kind of help them come out from the darkness.
Yeah, and then I would even take it a step further, and I hope this doesn't sound bad, but kind of in the same way that church, or the religious church, like, taught us and told us, hey, like, don't go into these systems, don't go into these areas of business, like, just stay away and wait for God. In this, that's how the church in general lost its influence. But I would even say, thinking about it, it's like, again, like, our parents did the best that they could with the knowledge that they had, so it's no fault on them. But because they had no revelation of what the kingdom was, they didn't understand purpose, identity, influence, vision, all these things. A lot of what we were taught also, like, nos desviaron from really influencing. Because even though the Bible says that, yes, our main influence is the kingdom, but it also says that your gift is going to bring you me before kings. Your areas of gifting, what you're naturally good at, that's what's going to give you a lot of influence. So in the same way, it's like, let's just say you were supposed to be in art, like you loved arts and crafts, and you loved all these things, but parents would tell you, hey, no, don't pursue arts because that doesn't pay good. Instead, become a nurse, become a teacher, become a doctor, become this. So without knowing, they took away influence. In the same way, it's like, hey, like, if you have a love for whatever area or whatever industry that was supposed to be your area of gifting, but because you were told, hey, no, like, pursue money, just look for what's gonna pay you good, or don't go to school because it's too expensive, it's a waste of time, instead just go find a job. All those things also played a part in that, not taking away of influence, but just making it so much.
So we lost our influence because of money.
Yeah.
You can say that, right?
Right.
And then Jesus says, you know what, you can't serve two masters. You can't serve
Right.
God and mammon at the same time. So most of us relinquish our gift, or we don't exercise our gift because we rather go after money.
Right.
And a lot of people were gifted in so many different areas, and they were influenced by their parents or their peers or money versus to go find fulfillment or assignment.
Right, or even to what you're saying is like I have so many friends and so many people that they tell me like, man, like I hate my job, like how I wish that I could just quit and refurbish cabinets. Like how do I wish that I can just quit and sew, or I don't like just anything.
Just take pictures or paint or
Right,
or
yeah.
just stuff that you hear, and I'm like,
Right.
yeah, that might be your calling, that might be your gift, but you're like, that's not going to pay the bills.
Right,
But
exactly.
so they automatically influence us to go after money instead of going after what God already put inside of us, that it was going to actually truly bring true influence.
Right, exactly.
So we got to take all of that into consideration. So we are going to be diving a little bit deep, the next coming months into this idea to be able to restore our saltiness so that we can be able to be an influence in the areas that God wants us to influence. We cannot advocate our responsibility, and we cannot advocate it and let somebody else take the place that belongs to us. And the world belongs to us. I think that's a statement that is very misunderstood, because people believe that the world belongs to the devil and that it is his, but no, to God. And he created the systems, and he created people so that they can inhabit the systems. Now it is not God's fault or responsibility if evil people got into the system and the good people just let it happen. So if we as good people let something bad happen, it is not on God, because God still left us here on earth, and he made us responsible for whatever happened within the confines of this system. So if you don't like the school system, it's your fault. If you don't like the educational system, political system, is your fault, because there are plenty of politicians within the church that can go out there and run for office and change it and change the laws and change all this stuff, but they're just lost their saltiness, so they're just waiting for the rapture instead, and they're going to be lawyers and just wait for the rapture, instead of being lawyers that can be in the community changing the laws for the benefit of all the believers worldwide. Because that's what happened in the system. You had a few a small group of people that got the degrees that they needed to get into positions where they could change the laws, and they changed the laws.
Right.
So now we're bound by the laws that we have allowed them to pass. And when it's time to go out there and vote, like for a governor or a mayor or a representative of the city,
Right.
I don't care about voting. I don't care about doing that stuff. We advocate our power, and we let people vote, and then next thing you know, you're not paying 5% on taxes anymore. Now you're paying 10% on taxes. And guess what? We're going to put some surcharges in there too.
Right.
Why? Because we didn't elect godly people that were going to look out for the well-being of people. That you just put people that were just greedy, that are not good stewards, not good managers, and we're stuck with these people because the people that are supposed to be there refuse to be able to influence.
Right, and then I like the word that you use, like we allow, because I was thinking, yeah, like how we've been reading, it does come down to our personal salt and how salty we are. Because if we've lost that ability to influence, then we become tolerable. And you've said this many times, and it's like, but yeah, it makes sense in every aspect. It's like what you tolerate will never change, whether it's within yourself or externally. So we've grown to tolerate so many things, like how you said, we see things and we're just like, okay, like it doesn't directly affect me, like in that sense, so I'm just not gonna do anything about it. Oh, I don't think that laws are gonna make a difference, so I won't vote. But in reality, all these things that we tolerate have changed the way that we live. So now again, like we're playing catch up and trying to get back into influencing, but it's hard because these areas have already been taken like a hold of and a good grasp on.
I like what Dr. Monroe would say, and I have adopted that myself. He's like, whatever you don't touch, you can't change, or whatever you don't touch, you can't influence. So if you want to have a good garden, you better garden just by looking at it, and not by being hopeful. So if you want your garden to flourish and to be able to produce good flowers, you better touch the soil. You better touch the ground. You better trim it. You got to take care of it. You got to be intentional. It's just not going to happen because you want it. You have to put in the work for it. So in the same way, if you want a good family, you want a good wife, guess what? You're not going to get a good wife just because you expect her to be a good wife. You're going to get a good wife when you cultivate her to the point where you give her all the tools and everything necessary for her to become a good wife.
Right.
And then in the same way, you know what? If you want a good husband, the wives have to do the exact same thing. He's not just going to become a good husband just because you wish he's a good husband. So what are you doing as a woman to making sure that your husband could become the best husband he can become? It all depends on how much you're touching, how much influence you put in there. Because if you don't influence your wife or your wife doesn't influence you, then there's going to be no change. There has to be intentionality in that stuff. Like I said, the same thing with gardening, the same thing with entertainment, the same thing with everything. We've just been taught to be hopeful all the time. We've used, for example, this word faith. Just have faith. Have faith. It's going to change. Have faith. Faith does not work that way. Faith is activated by works, meaning that you actually become active in the thing that you believe it can change.
Right.
So even if, for example, let's just talk about health. For example, you have some sort of disease. If you have faith that you can be healed, then you're gonna gravitate to the things that are gonna cause to bring that healing simply because you believe you have faith.
Right.
So same thing with everything else,
Yeah.
even the church.
David?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I was just I was gonna say that I was listening to another preaching of Miles earlier too, and we're talking a lot about change. Which influence in a way it creates change. But yeah, he was saying that change is inevitable. Change is one of the few things that is inevitable. But there are certain changes that can only happen because we allow them to happen. So. There's, like we've learned, or we've been talking, we're supposed to be the salt. If not, then, we're going to get trampled and thrown out and trampled. And in a way, that's what's happened in many of the systems and many of the things that we're unhappy with. It's because we allowed it, Change was going to happen. It's just a matter of the things that we allowed to happen. In a position where, like you were saying, we have to regain our saltiness. We have to understand our assignment. We have to understand that we were called to go out and be the light of the world and influence others, and that starts with ourselves being a light, and we can't do that, of course, if we can't first influence our own selves into becoming that.
Right.
Man, time has flown already. 9 p.m. It's a great topic. I invite everybody to join us this Sunday. We're not going to go live. We're not going to be here. We're going to be intentional in influencing our families by just spending time with them. So it's Sunday, September the 4th. We're not going to be here in the building, but we will be in the world.
Join us Friday, though.
Yeah, but we will be here this Friday for Kingdom Mentorship. If you have any questions, bring your questions down. Come down here and be influenced by the Holy Spirit, by the King himself, so that you can go out there and activate it in your assignment. Like I said, our job, our responsibility is to just wake up the saints, wake up the church, so that they can become a source of influence in the world, and they can take up their assignment, so that the transformation that they're looking for can happen through them. So, we're signing off. You want to say goodbye to the people?
Yeah, just I pray that this blessed you guys. Like we said earlier, I actually encourage everybody to go back a couple of messages, listen to the ones on vision, listen to the ones on purpose, because everything is a continuation of everything. And if you have the time and the will, go back to our first series back in January with Kingdom 101, because I'm telling you guys, everything is a continuation, and we want it to make sense. So so I would just say get prepared, prepare your guys' hearts to receive what this new series is going to bring on influence, because again, every problem that we see that we don't like, it's because it's within us to bring that solution. A while ago, problems not for blessings. So again, everything is tied together, and understanding that the problems that we want to change, it's up to us to change it. God's not going to come down and miraculously change the whole landscape from the day to tomorrow. It's like, no, God needs us to step up, have some courage, build up strength, have faith, have vision, so that we can go start and influencing all these areas that we want change in.
Yeah, I just wanted to end it with another verse that I was reading earlier, which falls back into what our assignment is, and it says Romans 10:14. But how can people call on Him for help if they've not yet believed? And how can they believe in one they've not yet heard of? And how can they hear the message of life if there is no one there to proclaim it? And how can the message be proclaimed if messengers have yet to be sent? So, as we've learned, we have to be sent to become an influence and have work to do in that area, but we need to get to that area because we were all called on to influence and to help other people become saved.
Hey man, so to the
Good
King,
stuff,
everybody.
David.
We will see you guys next month. I think there's a special program going on for next month. We'll see, and hope this message bless you. Like I said, give us a like, give us a share. You want to partner with us? You can do it at honorseed@house633.com. Help plant a seed into the kingdom. See you next time.